welcome to the Curious Calculator. In today's video, we're going to be going over factoring by grouping. So let's go ahead and get started here. I have a couple of examples lined up. The first one will be a little simpler, and then we're going to step it up a little bit with the second example. So the first example here, I have x to the third minus 4x squared plus 3x minus 12. All right here. So the first step that we want to do in factoring by grouping here, well, if we could take out a greatest common factor here, we would do that. But this one does not have a greatest common factor that we can take out. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step. We are going to group these first two terms together. So we're going to have x to the third minus 4x squared. And then we're going to group the next two terms together. So we'll have 3x minus 12. And then from here, what we want to do is take out the greatest common factor from each of these two terms at a time. So in the first two terms here, we can take out a x squared. So we'll have x squared, and that will leave us with x minus 4. And then in the next two terms here, we can take out a 3. So we'll have plus 3 times x minus 4. And now to go from here to the next part, what we're actually going to be using is the distributive property. And so I'm going to write that out right here. So for the distributive property, we have that a times b plus c equals a times b plus a times c. And let's go ahead and notice here that if we look back up here, we can think of this x minus 4 as our a, which shows up here and here, and then this x squared as our b, and this 3 as our take that out, as our c. And so what we're going to do is we're going to move from like what we have here on the right side of the equation, which is like what we have up here right now, and we're going to move to what we have here on the left side of the equation. So we're going to rewrite this as a x minus 4 times b plus c, which will be x squared plus 3. And that right there will be our final answer for this first one. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next example here. Let's see what I have. Negative 6x to the fourth plus 12x cubed plus 15x squared minus 30x. All right, so for this one, again, the first thing we're going to want to try and do is take out the greatest common factor. And in this case, let's see here, the greatest common factor we can take out, it looks like it's going to be a negative 3x. And so let's go ahead and do that. So negative 3x, and that will leave us with 2x to the third plus 4x squared, or sorry, that should be a minus 4x squared. 4x squared minus 5x, and then plus, let's see here, 10, just 10. Okay, so now we've taken out the greatest common factor. We did that. Now we want to move on to the factoring by grouping step. So we're going to group our two terms together like we did in the previous part. So let's see here. We're going to have 2x to the third minus 4x squared. Then we're going to group these two together. So plus negative 5x plus 10. And then we want to take out the greatest common factor from each of these here. So we'll have negative 3x times taking out that greatest common factor from the first one, which will be, let's see, 2x squared. 2x squared, which leaves us with x minus 2. And then the greatest common factor from the second one, we can take out a negative 5 minus 5 times, and that will leave us with an x minus 2. All right, and so again, we're going to be using that distributive property. I'll just go ahead and write it real quick right here. A times b plus a times c. And so doing that again, we're going to get negative 3x times 2x squared minus 5 times x minus 2. And that right there will be our final answer. And I'd just like to end today's video with a little fun fact from philosophy. Did you know that Socrates was considered the wisest of all, not because he necessarily knew all things, but because he understood the line between that which he knew and that which he did not, which enabled him to understand the limits of his own knowledge?